This is my 6th year of staying at the Zhou Manor. The woman Zhou Xun loves is about to be betrothed to the heir of the Marquis of Nanbo. Anxious and desperate, he came to find me, speaking with a rare gentleness.
Shuwan, you have lived in my family's manor for so long. It is time you repaid our kindness. You only need to find a way to make him fall in love with you, and this marriage alliance will surely fall through. Onset is done. I will take you as my concubine. Consider it my way of rewarding your favor.
I calculated silently in my heart and softly agreed, but when the news of my marriage into the Marquis's household reached his ears, he actually came to question me with bloodshot eyes.
Cui Shuwan, I only asked you to play a part. How could you take it seriously? He is frivolous and improper. He is by no means a good match for you.
I slapped him across the face. Don't you dare slander my good husband behind his back. Outside the tea house, the cicadas chirped noisily. A few drafts of cool air leaked through the crack of the door. Zhou Xun sat in the seat of honor, holding a folding fan of gold-threaded shoe brocade, gently fanning the ice blocks placed nearby to cool off. Cold sweat was breaking out on my forehead, and in my hand I held the peach blossom cakes bought from Rong Yu house. Just as I was about to push the door open to escape the heat, I actually heard others mentioning the marriage between Zhou Xun and me.
Brother Zhou, when can we drink to your wedding with Miss Cui? I see that she is truly deeply in love with you. Those peach blossom pastries from Rong Yu house are extremely hard to buy, not to mention having to stand in the scorching summer heat, waiting patiently for nearly the time it takes an incense stick to burn. You must cherish her well.
Another person nearby chimed in, their voice laced with contempt.
What kind of respectable, well-bred lady is she? She is nothing more than a social climber who came to the Zhou family 6 years ago. A girl from such a ruined family. How could she possibly be worthy of the third-place imperial scholar handpicked by His Majesty?
A smug, arrogant look appeared on Zhou Xun's face. He gently waved the folding fan in his hand and spoke in a slow, deliberate manner.
What marriage? It was merely that my father received some kindness from the Cui family in his early years and made a casual remark. It can hardly be taken seriously. Furthermore, her living expenses over the past few years have all been paid by my Zhou family. That tiny bit of kindness from back then has long been paid off. Surely I shouldn't be expected to throw away my entire life for it, should I?
It felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over me from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. The sweltering heat that had been rising just moments ago was instantly enveloped by a layer of chill. A burst of laughter erupted from inside the room. Someone spoke up teasingly.
Young Master Zhou, if you look down on her, why not bestow her upon me as a concubine? Setting everything else aside, the young lady Cui alone, with her supple waist, delicate, watery face and snow-white skin, has already made my heart itch with desire. Otherwise, Brother Zhou.
Before the man could finish his sentence, the jade fan was thrown straight out of Zhou Xun's hand, striking the man's forehead with a sharp clack.
Get out.
Zhou Xun's face, which had been full of smiles just moments ago, instantly darkened. With a faint trace of anger lingering between his brows, the room fell silent for a moment. The man suddenly realized his mistake and could only offer an apologetic smile.
It is my big mouth. I'll down 3 cups as punishment.
Only then did the atmosphere in the room slowly calm down. The door was suddenly pulled open from the inside, as the mocking fellow from earlier was heading out to sober up. With his head lowered, he glanced at me awkwardly. Zhou Xun's body stiffened. He stood up and came out to greet me, then took a silk handkerchief to wipe the fine sweat from my forehead, pretending not to know anything.
How did you get so hot?
He took the peach blossom cakes from my hand and poured me a cup of tea.
These cakes you bought today must be fresh out of the oven.
I nodded slightly, feeling a bit tired. His brow furrowed slightly, and he turned his head to look at the tea house across the street. His tone carried a hint of certainty.
I'm sure the young lady of the Su family will absolutely love it.
I followed his gaze and looked over. I saw Su Wanqiu sitting on the second floor of the tea house across the street. She was wearing a light-colored robe, with a beam of sunlight spilling over her shoulder, making her skin look as white as snow. Zhou Xun's gaze was fixed on her. I understood clearly. That was the kind of expression a man only shows when he admires a woman. He had never looked at me that way. I lowered my eyelashes, trying to hide the disappointment and pain in my eyes. My gaze happened to fall on the package of peach blossom pastries. At first, I thought Zhou Xun wanted to eat them himself. He had always been particular about his food and rarely ate pastries sold on the street. Therefore, when he praised the pastries from Rong Yu house as quite delicious, I wanted to please him. So I braved the sweltering heat and stood outside Rong Yu house for nearly 2 hours. Result: he wanted them to curry favor with Su Wanqiu. He did it for the same reason I did, yet we were so different. Zhou Xun clenched his fist, as if he had made up his mind about something. He picked up the peach blossom pastries from the table and quickly walked out the door. By the time he went up to the second floor of the tea house, the window over there had been closed. Behind his back, his group of fair-weather friends began to tease again.
Those two really are a perfect match. One is the second young master of a general's house, and the other is the daughter of the secretariat director. If they marry, I'm afraid all of us brothers here will feel inferior in the future. Stop talking nonsense.
The daughter of the Cui family is still here.
What is there to fear? Did I say something wrong? She is just from a ruined family. Does she still hope to become the primary wife of the general's estate?
I clutched my collar, unable to hide the embarrassment on my face. In their eyes, I was nothing more than someone trying to use a marriage contract to force Zhou Xun to marry me. But Zhou Xun knew me. If he did not care for me, I would never demand a favor to coerce him. It was Zhou Xun himself who refused to set things straight with those people, leaving me to suffer this humiliation instead. It was truly infuriating. I picked up the cup of hot water from the table and splashed it right at that big-mouthed fellow. He jumped around from the pain of the scald and glared at me fiercely. Someone beside him tugged at his robe.
That is enough. Are you upset that Zhou Xun's folding fan didn't hit you hard enough just now? She is his girl after all. How can you bully her as you please?
Only then did the man stop, wringing out his tea-soaked robe with his bare hands. It was at this moment that Zhou Xun pushed the door open and walked in, looking rather displeased. His brief trip seemed to have left him with a heavy heart. Without even pausing to drink some hot tea, he dragged me into the carriage. Thinking that our marriage agreement had upset the young lady of the Su family, I spoke in a low voice. Zhou Xun. Our marriage agreement wasn't set in stone anyway. The carriage fell silent for a moment. He frowned, lost in thought. Only when the wheel ran over a pebble, jolting the carriage violently, did he suddenly look up and stare at me.
What did you just say?
Just as I was about to speak again, he cut me off abruptly, his voice filled with resentment.
The young lady of the Su family. How could she marry that spoiled heir of the Marquis of Nanbo? An outstanding woman like her should be matched with the most outstanding man in the world. That son of the Marquis of Nanbo hasn't even officially married yet, and he has already caused a scandal by keeping a mistress. If Wanqiu marries him, she will surely suffer.
His fingertips rubbed against his clothes, a nervous habit he only had when his mind was in turmoil. His gaze lingered on my side for a moment, and then his eyes lit up again.
Shuwan, you have stayed at my house for so many years, and I have provided you with food and drink. It is also time for you to repay that kindness.
I was utterly bewildered. His eyes gleamed with excitement as he continued.
With your seductive beauty, if you can win the favor of the Marquis of Nanbo's heir, then his marriage alliance with Wanqiu will surely fall through. Once I successfully marry Wanqiu, I will find a way to take you in as my concubine. In this way, it can be considered a repayment of the old kindness between our families.
He spoke with such self-righteousness, as if he had come up with a brilliant idea. Yet, a chill ran down my spine as I listened, mixed with the heat wafting in from the carriage window. It made me feel dizzy and suffocated. The autumn cicadas screeched even more piercingly. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. So this was the scheme Zhou Xun was plotting, to use me to fulfill his desires with Su Wanqiu, and then to possess me as well, keeping me as a mere concubine. It was indeed a perfect plan to kill two birds with one stone. As the carriage passed the gates of Rongqing Pavilion, I turned my head, lifted half of the carriage curtain, and looked up at Rong Yu, the young master of the Marquis of Nanbo, who was sitting upstairs. He possessed a handsome countenance. When he spoke with me earlier, he was also humble and polite. He is elegant and outstanding, not at all as absurd as the rumors in the streets suggest. If I could truly make him fall in love with me, then by relying on the power of the general's mansion, and having Uncle Joe adopt me as his goddaughter, marrying into the Marquis's mansion wouldn't be a difficult task. The wife of the heir sounds much better than a wife of the Zhou family. I began to scheme silently in my heart, seeing that I remained silent. Zhou Xun called my name a few more times.
Shuwan, please, just do this for me.
I turned to her and gave a charming smile. All right. He excitedly grabbed my hand, his tone full of eagerness.
Dear Shuwan, I knew that you would grant whatever I asked of you.
As soon as I got home, I hid in my boudoir and stared at myself in the bronze mirror for a long time. Relying on this body alone might not be enough to secure Rong Yu. Fortunately, I knew how to cater to his tastes. Seeing me lost in thought, Caping brought me a bowl of sour plum soup.
What kind of trick is Miss scheming now? Are you trying to please the young master?
I rested my chin on both hands, my voice carrying a hint of grievance. It is not for Zhou Xun. Caping, You've been in the capital for all these years. Do you know what the heir of Nanbo loves the most? Caping frowned and began to count them off on her fingers.
Cockfighting, horse racing, visiting brothels, playing kuju, and double six. He also has a preference for keeping mistresses. However, recently I heard from a young maid working at the Marquis's manor that the heir has become obsessed with cricket fighting.
Hearing this, I felt a surge of joy in my heart. Cricket fighting was perfect back when I was in the countryside because I was good at listening to the chirping of crickets. I could always catch the fiercest king crickets by selling them to my playmates in the village. I had earned quite a bit of silver. With this in mind, I immediately set to work and asked Siping to get me some bamboo strips to make a tool for catching crickets. At night, the evening breeze blew in gusts and the full moon cast down a silver glow. A few tentative insect chirps came from the base of the wall. I bent over, closed my eyes, and carefully distinguished the exact location of the sound. With a twist of my wrist, I gently gathered the tool, and the cricket that was chirping the loudest was firmly trapped under my mesh net. Got it. I couldn't help but cheer with joy. At the same time, the lights in Zhou Xun's courtyard flickered on. Draped in an outer robe, holding up an oil lamp, he looked over. Suddenly, he let out a yawn.
Shuwan, you're still up this late. What are you tinkering with now to make me happy?
Caping, who was waiting nearby, replied with a smile.
Young master, don't flatter yourself. Tonight Miss is catching crickets for the heir of the Marquis of Nanbo. Miss called this. What? Catering to his taste.
Half of Zhou Xun's face was cast in shifting light and shadow by the candlelight. I could only see his brow furrow slightly. He suddenly whipped his long sleeve back, his voice deep and stern.
Nonsense. Your mistress is being foolish, but are you, a servant, also going to be foolish? Go back inside this instant.
He rarely spoke to the servants with such harshness. Because of this, the maids in the manor loved to joke with him, which had made them somewhat undisciplined. For him to fly into such a rage tonight, he was likely still agitated by what happened during the day. Caping pouted aggrievedly, hanging her head very low, muttering something under her breath. I didn't hear it clearly, only after Zhou Xun went back to his room, grumbling all the way. Did I lead Caping away? The moonlight turned the blue stone path beneath our feet a pale white. Caping lowered her voice and said,
Why is he acting so high and mighty? I think he is just jealous because Miss is catching crickets for heir Rong, and he is secretly sulking, but he is too embarrassed to take his anger out on Miss, so he scolded me like that instead.
I looked at her, amused. You're talking nonsense. How could he possibly like me? And why on earth would he be jealous? In my opinion, he is just frustrated because he found out today that the Miss of the Su family is getting engaged. That is what is bothering him. Caping teased the cricket inside the mesh net, then suddenly turned to me, asking with a deadpan expression,
Miss, I have been following the young master since I was 10. Outsiders might not see through all his schemes and thoughts, but how could I not know? Miss, think about it carefully. Our young master cares about you far more than anyone else. Even the cousin who used to stay at the manor couldn't compare to you. Do you dare say you haven't felt it yourself, Miss?
The moonlight was cold and clear, shining on the swing set nearby. The begonia tree beside it was in full, lush bloom. Actually, I didn't originally live in the begonia courtyard. On the day I arrived at the Zhou household, the first madam learned that Zhou Xun and I had been betrothed as children. She was very displeased. She was Zhou Xun's stepmother and had originally wanted to marry her own niece to him. So when I arrived at the Zhou manor, she did not welcome me, casually placing me in the west wing, far from the main hall. After staying there for just a few days, I broke out in red rashes all over my body. The doctor said it was caused by dampness and suggested I move to a south-facing courtyard. I was young back then, always feeling like I was living on the Zhou family's charity, and too shy and embarrassed to speak up. To my surprise, the very next day, Zhou Xun came with several managing maids to my courtyard. He wanted me to move into his courtyard. He was only 13 years old at the time, but he spoke like an adult.
I heard from my mother that your family did ours a great favor, so you are my benefactor. Since that is the case, then move into my courtyard. Just settle in with peace of mind. I will speak to my stepmother myself. Father wrote in his letter that your family has been a great benefactor to our Zhou family. I will absolutely not let anyone in the manor bully you.
And so, I settled down in his courtyard. Our 2 rooms were separated by a screen wall and a stone path about 100 meters long. Zhou Xun and I would often run into each other on this path, admiring flowers in spring, enjoying the cool breeze in summer, savoring tea in autumn, and watching the snow in winter. We were always together. Not long after, another young lady, a cousin, arrived at the manor. She was the niece of the first madam's clan. The first madam had originally intended to introduce her niece to Zhou Xun, but because I had come between them, she harbored resentment. Zhou Xun and I went to the gate together to welcome her. The first madam's gaze swept over Zhou Xun and me, seemingly trying to give us a warning.
I always say that people still need to go out more to see the world. Otherwise, they won't even know what they like and will live their whole lives in a muddle. The same goes for choosing a partner.
Zhou Xun paid little heed to her words at the time. After that young lady had stayed for some days, she suddenly claimed she had lost a gold hairpin. Coincidentally, I had gone to visit her that very day. Her delicate voice carried a sharp sting.
If you liked it, sister, you only had to tell me. Why resort to such means?
I said directly, I did not touch your things, sister. The young lady felt wrong, and her eyes welled with tears.
Only you came to my courtyard that day, sister. Surely no one else would have taken my jewelry.
For a moment, I did not know how to defend myself. Everyone secretly harbored suspicions. Everyone suspected that I had stolen and hidden her jewelry. Only Zhou Xun believed me. His voice was gentle and firm.
Shuwan is of upright character. She would never take another person's belongings. It must be that the servants in your courtyard were negligent. Since it is difficult to clear up right now, we should let the elders of the household question your servants thoroughly to get to the bottom of this matter. If we find out who was negligent or committed the theft, they will be dealt with properly according to the household rules.
With that, he intended to go and invite the household elders to investigate together. Before he had even walked out of the decorative archway, a maidservant, feeling uneasy, knelt down of her own accord and confessed that she had temporarily coveted the appearance of the hairpin and committed the mistake in a moment of foolishness. She voluntarily produced the hidden jewelry. Zhou Xun turned around to advise the cousin that she usually neglected to discipline her servants and should not easily suspect others without reason when things happen. A few days later, the first madam arranged for someone to send the cousin back to her own home. When I disliked the bitterness of the medicine, he would hold pear syrup candies and coax me patiently. At that age, which could be considered the first awakening of love, it was hard for me not to fall for Zhou Xun. I took it for granted that Zhou Xun liked me. Therefore, I treated him even better. Later, he was handpicked by the emperor as the Manhwa scholar. From then on, he began to distance himself from me in a subtle, elusive way. I could understand, and naturally knew when to advance or retreat, and understood what was gained or lost. He liked me, but he would not always like me, nor did he like me the most. And I did not want to turn myself into a frog in warming water. The next day, I got up very early, preparing to dress up nicely, to deliver the cricket to the Marquis of Nanbo's estate. Just as I walked out of the courtyard, the door behind me was pulled open with a bang. Zhou Xun called out to me,
Cui Shuwan, resume the pillow you made for me last time. The herbs filled inside this pillow lost their efficacy long ago, causing me to sleep poorly all of last night.
I turned my head to look over. The pillow had been thrown at his feet, stained with some dark mud spots. This pillow had taken me nearly half a month of sewing to complete. The herbs inside had been dried repeatedly over many days. I replied listlessly, I don't have time today. His gaze lingered on my face for a moment, and he frowned deeply again.
What could possibly be more important than me?
I raised my hand and shook the cricket inside the mesh cage. Naturally, I am going to win the favor of the heir of the Marquis of Nanbo. With that, I boarded the carriage without looking back. Therefore, I did not see the fleeting disappointment in Zhou Xun's eyes. Just as I arrived at the gates of the Marquis of Nanbo's estate, I ran into Rong Yu. Today, he wore a moon-white, cloud-patterned soft satin brocade robe with a round collar, his hair bound with a white jade hairpin, looking exceptionally elegant and radiant.
We meet again, Miss Cui.
I curtsied gracefully. Thank you, your lordship, for speaking up for me yesterday. Otherwise, those ruffians would have stolen the spot I queued so long for. I came today specifically to thank you. Yesterday, while queuing for pastries at Rongqing Pavilion, it was finally my turn, but several men tried to push past me by force. It was Rong Yu who spoke up and taught them a lesson. Because of this, my impression of him was not bad. Rong Yu beat his servant to it and took the cricket from my hand. His cool fingertips lightly brushed against the back of my hand. He held the cage to his ear and shook it gently. The cricket inside let out a strong, energetic chirp.
It is a feisty one. I didn't expect Miss Cui to have such a wonderful skill.
When he said this, his eyes were bright, looking very much like the stars hanging in the night sky. I smiled slightly. I am glad you like it, your lordship. His eyebrows arched up, unable to hide the smile in his eyes.
I like it. Of course I like it.
After saying this, his gaze paused slightly, falling upon my waist.
Miss Cui, the knot at your waist is crafted so exquisitely. It truly is fine craftsmanship.
The servant beside him chimed in.
Young master, didn't you just receive a sachet as a gift from Her Highness yesterday? I think if paired with the knot crafted by Miss Cui, it couldn't be more perfect.
These words caught me off guard. This knot was merely something I had woven out of boredom to pass the time. It could hardly be called exquisite. If the heir apparent likes it, I can weave a new one to present to you another day. His eyes shone bright and clear, and he was visibly stunned for a moment. The tips of his ears flushed as if touched by a dab of rouge.
Truly. If so, That would be absolutely perfect.
I nodded with a slight smile and took my leave. As I turned around, he suddenly called out to me.
Miss Cui, would it be alright if you call me Huaijin from now on?
There was a hint of cautious hesitation in his tone. I was somewhat surprised. Huaijin was his courtesy name. By saying this, he was essentially taking the initiative to draw closer to me. I gently agreed. All right. When I returned to the manor, Zhou Xun had not yet returned. According to the housekeeper, after the imperial court adjourned, he had gone out drinking with several of his colleagues. I assumed he was still troubled over Su Wanqiu's matter. I had only lain down for a brief moment when his personal servant ran into the courtyard to call for me. Miss Cui, the young master is drunk. Right now, he is clamoring for you to go and fetch him. I pressed my temples. It had always been like this in the past. Whenever he got drunk, he would send a servant back to have me fetch him. I would have to carry the hangover soup and take careful care of him in the carriage. Today, however, I suddenly lacked that patience. Feigning exhaustion, I replied, I must have caught a chill today. My head aches terribly, so I will not be going. The servant stamped his feet in anxiety.
What should I do then? If you do not go, miss, there is no way I can bring that great deity back.
I ignored him. Let him be. After all, I was not the one suffering. In the end, Zhou Xun was still brought back to the manor by his attendants, except he was covered in his own vomit. I sent Caping to tend to him in his courtyard. It was not until midnight that the commotion over there finally quieted down. When Zhou Xun woke up, he was furious. He rushed into my room in a huff.
Cui Shuwan, why didn't you come to pick me up yesterday? You truly are a heartless little thing. And here I was, still thinking of you.
With that, he placed a white jade orchid hairpin, inlaid with silver, on the table, then pushed it toward me.
For you.
It seemed he was offering me a way out. I did not want to make things awkward with him either, considering I was still staying at his manor. So I had Caping put it on for me and spoke to soothe him. Since you like Miss Su, what would it look like if I kept throwing myself at you? If word of this reached Miss Su's ears, where would my dignity be? His expression softened slightly, and an undeniable look of smugness spread across his eyes. His voice grew light and cheerful. So, our Shuwan is jealous. The gloom that had filled his chest earlier was instantly swept away. He casually peeled an orange.
You are my person. Who would dare gossip? Besides, Wanqiu has always been magnanimous and proper. She is the kindest and gentlest woman in the world. She would never make things difficult for you on purpose. When you get along with her as sisters in the future, I will certainly not show favoritism to either of you.
A smug smile played at the corners of his mouth, and even his brows were raised with high spirits.
Shuwan, I know you have feelings for me. I will certainly not let you suffer any grievances. Didn't you always want to go see the flower lanterns before? Today is the Dragon Boat Festival, and there just happens to be a troupe putting on a lantern show. It will be very lively.
Standing to the side, Siping suddenly perked up. She pulled at my sleeve and shook it gently. Let's go, let's go. I didn't want to spoil his fun, so I agreed. By evening, the carriage was ready. Zhou Xun had prepared my favorite pastries. He had always paid attention to these small details, though they were just effortless, minor gestures. Women are often most easily moved by such things. The entire Chang'an street was as bright as day with lanterns, their lights swirling like jade cups. Zhou Xun gave Caping a tail of silver and sent her off to wander on her own. I was drawn to a goldfish lantern. The shopkeeper said that as long as someone guessed 10 riddles in a row, they could win it as a prize. Just as I was eager to try, Zhou Xun held me back. The corners of his eyes curved up slightly, his gaze filled with a smile.
Since you like it, I'll win it and give it to you. Just wait here. I won't disappoint you.
He quickly disappeared into the crowd. I heard a few cheers coming from upstairs, followed by a few more, until fireworks exploded by the moat, and the crowd around me suddenly surged. When I looked up again, I could no longer see Zhou Xun. Even the goldfish lantern, hanging upstairs, had been taken down at some point. Since Zhou Xun was taking so long to come down, I went upstairs to look for him. The shopkeeper was startled for a moment when he saw me, and then explained.
The young master, who just won the lantern, handed it to another young lady. They've been gone for a while now. I believe they went to watch the molten iron fireworks.
A wave of disappointment washed over my heart, mingled with a trace of bitter sorrow. I shouldn't have believed Zhou Xun. My high spirits suddenly plummeted. After wandering around alone for a while, I prepared to return to the manor. When I reached the place where the carriages were parked, I only saw Caping waiting there by herself. She held a stick of candied haws in her hand, the outer sugar coating gradually melting as the sticky syrup slowly dripped down the bamboo skewer. She must have been waiting for quite some time. When she saw me, she pouted and couldn't help but complain to me.
My lady, our carriage was given away to that Su Wanqiu by the young master. The young master said the wheel hub of her family's carriage was broken, so he had to use our carriage to send her back first, and told us to wait here. Looking at the sky, it is about to rain. What are we supposed to do?
Suppressing the disappointment in my heart, I calculated how long it would take to walk back. Caping's mouth fell open, and she made a gesture at me.
My lady. It is a 3-li walk.
I abandoned that idea. Just then, someone nearby suddenly called my name.
Shu Wan.
I turned my head to look. Rong Yu was sitting in a carriage, holding up half of the window curtain, looking at me with gentle eyes.
I can take you back to your manor.
My eyes curved into a smile, revealing an impeccably perfect expression. That would be wonderful. He helped me into the carriage and handed over a cup of herbal tea.
To cool you down. It looks like a heavy downpour is coming. Where is your manor's carriage?
A pleasant incense burned inside the carriage, like spilling beans from a bag. Caping explained the whole story clearly. I nudged her with my elbow, but she didn't understand and continued to add
That Miss Su is really something. She could have just sent someone back to fetch another carriage. Why did she have to snatch our ladies?
She did not know about Rong Yu's impending marriage proposal to Su Wanqiu. I could only explain it was Zhou Xun's lack of consideration, asking Rong Yu not to take his anger out on the Su family's young lady. Rong Yu waved his hands repeatedly.
No, I have nothing to do with that, Miss Su. It was just that her father the other day casually mentioned it to my father, but neither my father nor I have any such intention. Shu Wan, please do not misunderstand.
Oh. So that is how it is. It seemed Su Wanqiu was just flattering herself. But why on earth was Rong Yu blushing? My eyes fell upon his face, which was flushed like the sunset glow. Suddenly, I spoke up. Then what kind of woman do you like? By the time we arrived at the Zhou Manor, the rain outside was already falling in drops as large as soybeans. With flushed cheeks, I lifted the carriage curtain. Rong Yu stepped down from the carriage before me, holding an umbrella. He reached out his hand to help me down. Behind me, Siping covered her mouth and let out a giggle. I placed my hand on his wrist, and with my other hand holding up my skirt, I lightly jumped down. Unfortunately, there was moss on the road. My foot slipped, and I fell forward, completely caught off guard. Suddenly, a pair of hands wrapped around my waist, catching me and pulling me into his embrace. Raindrops fell one by one from the edge of the umbrella, sounding like beats against one's heart. The scent of agarwood, lingering around my nose, completely threw my thoughts into disarray.
Shu Wan, watch your step.
My heart beat like a drum, and I felt my face burning intensely. This scene happened to be witnessed by Zhou Xun, who was rushing over. He trotted up, first putting some distance between Rong Yu and me, and then bowed to Rong Yu.
Thank you, Your Highness, for bringing Shu Wan back. However, regarding the propriety between men and women, it is still better to be cautious.
A soft chuckle escaped from Rong Yu's lips.
How is it that, does sending the young lady of the Su family back not count as violating propriety?
Zhou Xun was taken aback, his face flushing slightly. I thanked Rong Yu once more. As I turned to head back into the manor, Rong Yu, holding an exquisite palace lantern, called out to me from behind.
Shu Wan, Her Highness gifted this to me today. I think it looks much better than that goldfish lantern.
He placed the palace lantern into my hands with a gentle smile, revealing the dimples on both of his cheeks. Once we were back inside the manor, Zhou Xun began to explain what had happened today.
Miss Su's carriage broke down, and she was in a hurry to get back for her grandmother's birthday feast. That is why I lent her the carriage. I originally planned to pick you up right after sending her back, but the secretariat director dragged me to have a couple of drinks, and that is what delayed me, which is why I was delayed. As for that lantern, she found it quite novel, so I gave it to her. It wasn't anything valuable anyway.
I let out a soft sigh. That was something I had my eyes on. It was something I liked. It wasn't just some worthless object. You knew very well that I liked it. Yet you still gave it away. It is simply because what I like is not that important to you, so you don't feel the need to care about it.
That is not true, Shu Wan. I didn't think that much into it.
He offered a messy explanation, failing to make any sense of it. Suddenly, he turned around and began to blame me instead.
But weren't you also acting all touchy-feely with Rong Yu today? I didn't even make an issue of it. Yet here you are, lecturing me.
I held out my hands and looked at him. Wasn't it you who told me to find a way to make him happy, so that you and Su Wanqiu could be together? Am I not doing all of this for your sake? How can you turn things around like this and hurt my feelings? As I spoke, I forced out a couple of tears. A look of panic crossed his face, and he quickly tried to comfort me.
All right, Shu Wan, I didn't mean it that way. I was just worried he might take advantage of you. You know as well as I do how terrible his reputation is in the capital. I only have your best interests at heart.
He turned his back to me, as if struggling with his thoughts for a long while before saying,
Fine. Once this matter is resolved, I will make sure he has nothing to do with you ever again.
The way he pondered was truly foolish and laughable. Sai Ping had already prepared my bathwater, so I took a wonderful, relaxing bath. As I lay in bed, I suddenly recalled what Rong Yu had said in the carriage earlier today. He said he liked girls like me. He praised me for being candid and straightforward. He praised me for knowing how to catch the fiercest crickets and how to tie the most beautiful decorative knots. He even praised me as a perfect match for marriage. My heart began to flutter again, like a deer running wild inside my chest. In my drowsy state, I dreamed that Rong Yu had actually turned into a sika deer, nuzzling against me. When I woke up, my face was as red as sunset clouds. How could I have such a dream? Early the next morning, there was a commotion coming from Zhou Xun's room again. When I pushed open the door, he was dancing with joy. He even tried to come over and hug me, but I dodged him.
Xu Wan, you are truly remarkable. Do you know that early this morning, Rong Yu sent someone to the Secretariat's manor to call off the marriage talks? He even claimed the whole thing was just a rumor spread by servants and completely unfounded. My dear Xu Wan, you have truly done me a massive favor.
With that, he hurriedly instructed his personal servant, "Go and prepare my hunting attire for the autumn hunt. This time, His Majesty is setting up the hunting grounds at Mount Lu. Wanqiu will be going with her elder brother. I must put on a good performance in front of her." He was spinning around restlessly, like a top, and then spoke to me again.
For this hunt, you don't need to come with me. I'm afraid Wanqiu might misunderstand our relationship, but don't worry. I will find an opportunity in the future to mention taking you as a concubine to her. I certainly won't wrong you.
I was just about to say there was no need, as I also had someone else in my heart, but he turned around so quickly that my words were drowned out by the wind. The hunt was to last for half a month, and I was glad to have some peace and quiet. I began weaving a decorative knot for Rong Yu in the courtyard. He sent people to deliver things to my courtyard every single day. Today it was a jade hairpin, tomorrow a pearl hair tassel, and the day after, he sent someone to bring me glazed incense, offered as tribute from the western regions. The servant who came was the same one I had met last time. With a smile on his face, he said,
Our young master said. He wants you to keep him in your thoughts every day, miss.
A few days later, Rong Yu appeared on the wall of my courtyard again. I was surprised that he had returned so early. He toyed with the green plums hanging over the wall, smiling with wild, lazy abandon.
There are too many mosquitoes on the mountain. The wind is too loud at night, and the sun is so bright I can't open my eyes. Haze, I couldn't sleep well either.
He propped himself up, curled his lips into a smile.
Xu Wan, I just missed you a little.
The light and shadow fell upon his handsome, elegant features, and my heart suddenly skipped a beat again. As if suddenly remembering something, he said,
Xu Wan, do you want to go somewhere with me?
Where? Rong Yu had mentioned to me before about his rumored mistress. Although I was prepared, when I actually saw her, I was still somewhat surprised. Though she was only in her early 30s, many white hairs had already grown at her temples. She was dressed very simply, with only a sandalwood hairpin in her hair bun. Rong Yu called her Zhenyang. A 6-year-old child ran out of the house and threw himself into his arms. He then took the child to ride a small wooden horse in the yard. With a smile in her eyes, Zhenyang poured a cup of mulberry tea for me.
You are the first woman he has brought here. He must care about you very much. I am very happy for him.
She spoke in a calm and unhurried manner.
Because of me, he has attracted a lot of gossip. But please rest assured, miss, there is no romantic affection between him and me. It is just that he received a favor from my husband in his early years, before my husband passed away. He entrusted him to look after us, mother and son, on his behalf. That is all.
She slowly explained her relationship with Rong Yu. Rong Yu went to the military camp to train when he was 15. At that time, because he was small and weak, with fair and delicate skin, he was always ostracized by others. Zhenyang's husband was the centurion of their battalion. He didn't bother with such trivial matters, but simply made Rong Yu train for 2 more hours than the others every day. This matter was reported to the lieutenant general. The lieutenant general thought the centurion was deliberately mistreating Rong Yu and punished him by withholding 3 days of rations. That day, he said to Rong Yu,
On the battlefield, the enemy won't slash you one less time just because you are good looking, nor will they let you off just because you are the son of the Marquis of Nanbo. If you can't even take this bit of hardship, then get lost and go back to being your precious young master. Don't make the brothers lose their lives for you on the battlefield.
At that time, Rong Yu only took him for an overbearing and unreasonable soldier. Later, during a night raid by the Turks, that centurion, who didn't get along well with him, truly gave his life for him. Before he died, he entrusted Rong Yu to take care of his wife and child back home for him. Rong Yu was devastated by this incident. He sent people to bring the man's wife and child back to the capital, which led to the rumors of him keeping a mistress. Since then, Rong Yu never set foot on a battlefield again. I turned my head to look at Rong Yu. He was currently brandishing a wooden sword. The wooden sword sliced through the air, leaving a sharp, fierce arc in its wake. Only then did I see clearly that beneath his casual, frivolous facade lay an old dream he was terrified of waking up from. Before we departed, Zhen Yang asked Rong Yu when she would get to drink his wedding wine. Rong Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at me.
You'll have to ask her. It is not up to me.
Catching the brilliant spark in his eyes, I spoke up quietly. The marriage still needs to be carefully considered. His eyes dimmed for a moment, and he gently tugged at my sleeve, looking a bit anxious.
Shuwan, is there somewhere I haven't done well enough?
I curled my lips into a smile and tapped Rong Yu's forehead. You haven't even proposed to my family yet. How can I agree to marry you? He suddenly broke into a brilliant smile.
I'll send someone to the Zhou estate to propose right away.
Look. The person who truly wants to marry you will always be this impatient. After spending 10 days with Su Wanqiu, Zhou Xun discovered that she seemed different from what he had imagined. He liked her playing the zither under the moon, yet felt she was indifferent to the sufferings of the world. He liked her quiet and dignified demeanor, yet felt her personality was dull and tedious. He liked her poise and generosity, yet felt she never turned anyone away. There were many young noblemen who liked Su Wanqiu, so many that in her eyes he was not the most special one. She was unlike Cui Shuwan, who put him first in everything. The moment he frowned, she would find ways to make him happy. He only mentioned once that he wasn't sleeping well, and she found soothing herbs to sew into a pillow for him when he was drunk at night. No matter how late it was, she would bring him hangover soup and tend to him. Cui Shuwan was the girl who would treat him best of all. But what about Su Wanqiu? She would care about him too, and she would smile at him too. But this care and these smiles were no different from what she gave to others. The sense of disparity born from this comparison made him begin to miss Cui Shuwan's goodness day by day. At this moment, his desire to see Cui Shuwan reached its peak. It felt as if something burning was pressing down on his chest, making his footsteps grow urgent. He had even begun to plan that upon returning to the capital, he would speak clearly to his mother. Cui Shuwan had loved him for so many years. If she knew he was finally willing to marry her, she would surely be overjoyed. I had thought the Marquis's household would have some reservations about my birth, but the old Marquis pushed the wedding preparations forward overnight. According to Rong Yu, he had to get the marriage finalized before General Zhou returned. It wasn't until I saw Rong Yu's father that I realized this Master Rong was actually the merchant who, along with Uncle Zhou, had been saved by my father back then. His eyes shone brightly as he stroked his beard and laughed.
Ha ha ha. Back then, he was one step ahead of me. This time, let's see if I can't beat him to it and snatch this daughter-in-law first.
The first lady of the Zhou household was also very pleased to see this happen. She never wanted me to marry Zhou Xun in the first place, so she returned the marriage contract between me and Zhou Xun. Thus, the marriage preparations went very smoothly. I would be married from the Zhou residence as their adopted daughter. On the day Zhou Xun returned home, he saw the entire courtyard filled with betrothal gifts draped in red silk and brocade, including 2 wild geese. He frowned slightly. He grabbed Caping, who was standing nearby, and asked anxiously,
Who sent these betrothal gifts? There are no girls in our household getting married.
Siping let out a bell-like giggle. Young master, isn't there still Miss Cui in our household? All 66 loads of betrothal gifts are for her. Zhou Xun's body swayed slightly, the jade piece at his waist clinking softly. He thought about it, and a blush crept onto his face.
So my first mother prepared this for me. How did she know my feelings? This is good, saving me the trouble of telling her about marrying Shuwan.
Caping frowned, tilting her head as she looked at him.
Young master, you are overthinking it. These betrothal gifts were sent by the Nan Marquis household. Our young lady is marrying Rong Yu, the heir of the Marquis household. Young master, Rong. She will be the wife of the heir in the future.
With a loud boom, it felt as if a clap of thunder had struck next to Zhou Xun's ears. In utter disbelief, even his shoulders began to tremble slightly. He pressed his lips together, his voice hoarse and low.
How is that possible? The one she likes is clearly me. How could she marry someone else? Caping, you are getting bolder and bolder, actually playing such a joke on your young master.
Siping pouted, looking up at his somewhat dejected expression, and said,
The maidservant from the Marquis household just delivered the wedding gown. If you don't believe me, young master, you can just go and ask Miss Cui yourself. Why throw a tantrum at me here and live in self-deception?
Zhou Xun felt as if he couldn't even stand steady. He staggered a few steps, then lifted the hem of his robe and ran toward the backyard like an arrow released from a bowstring. He saw Cui Shuwan thanking the maidservant, her face blooming with smiles, holding an intricately crafted, heavy wedding robe in her hands. He felt his breathing tighten. and rushed forward in a hurry and grabbed Cui Shuwan's wrist. The smile froze on my face. This was the very first time I had ever seen Zhou Xun look so panicked and helpless. Fine beads of cold sweat had even broken out on his forehead. His fingertips trembled slightly.
Shuwan. You're marrying Rong Yu. How can you marry him? The one you love is clearly me. Tell me, were you bewitched by him? Or is it because of my feelings for Su Wanqiu that you're doing this out of spite?
I pulled my hand back, rewarded the maid with the tail of silver, and only then turned to look at Zhou Xun. Bai Jin is a very good man. He loves me. And I love him. Our feelings are mutual. How is that being bewitched? This concerns the rest of my life. Why would I use it to act out of spite against you? It is true that I loved you before. But you were the one who pushed me away with your own hands. I stepped aside for you and Miss Su before. I hope you can also wish Lord Rong and me well today. His mind was in turmoil, and a sense of possessiveness arose. The resentment of having his own property coveted by someone else.
No, Shuwan. I only asked you to put on a show with him. I didn't ask you to actually fall for him. How could you take it seriously? Do you know he keeps a mistress in secret and even has a 6-year-old child? His character is deplorable. His nature is frivolous, and he only knows how to indulge in sensory pleasures. How could he have any sincerity? He is merely coveting your beauty and deliberately deceiving you. He is not a good man.
He paused, frowned, and looked at me with a questioning gaze.
Or is it that you've long harbored the desire to climb the social ladder and use your looks to win favor? Cui Shuwan, when did you become so opportunistic and calculating? I really did underestimate you.
With a sharp slap, my palm struck across his face. Don't you dare slander my beloved husband in front of me. You only know him as someone who indulges in sensory pleasures. But do you know he manages over 100 shops? And all the money raised is used for the annual military expenses and pensions for orphans. Do you know how many charity houses he has built across the country just to provide relief for the families and children of those fallen soldiers? And do you know how much he did to ensure the soldiers were well fed and warm by donating countless cotton clothes and medicinal herbs to the northern border? You only care to listen to what others say, never willing to see the truth with your own eyes. You say he is not a good man. Then who is? Are you trying to say you are? Deep down, you have always looked down on me. That is why you tolerated your friends mocking me. So you think being good to me is merely to repay your debt of gratitude to my father. So you think being with me is throwing away your entire life. And so, what makes you think you're such a good person? His face turned pale, inch by inch under the weight of my words. All color drained from his face.
You heard what was said that day. I wasn't condoning their mockery of you. I just didn't bother to argue with them. I admit, after I placed third in the imperial examinations, my mind did wander a bit, but that was just a small mistake. Shuwan, can you forgive me?
I stared at him, watching his anger, yet feeling completely unmoved. The things he used to turn a blind eye to had now crossed mountains and rivers to find him, crushing him until his back was bent. You protected me and the Zhou family for all these years. I don't really hate you. It is merely a bit of disappointment, since your heart already belongs to someone else. Why must you put on such a show of deep affection for me? He cut me off. He spoke with great agitation, a thin mist of tears welling up in the corners of his eyes.
Shuwan, I don't like the young lady of the Su family anymore. After spending some time with her, I finally realized that a woman who is like the bright moon is not suited for me. She would never care for me as meticulously and thoughtfully as you do. And so, I regret it. Are you really not even willing to give me a single chance to regret?
I lowered my gaze and spoke very softly. That is not love. That is just your unwillingness to let go. You always used to think that I would wait for you, which is why you pursued others without any restraint, and could even treat me as a chess piece that you could easily give away, because you knew that no matter when you turned around, I would always be there. Now that I no longer want to wait, you feel lost and regretful. I let out a gentle smile. It is not because you suddenly love me so much. It is simply because the person who always put you first finally does not want you anymore. A tear slipped from his eye, dripping onto the back of his hand that was clutching the hem of my dress. A bitter laugh escaped his throat, paying him no more attention. I closed the door. On the day of the wedding, Zhou Xun still saw me off in the capacity of an elder brother. Before I departed, his throat choked up, his voice so hoarse it was barely recognizable.
If he mistreats you, just come back. Me. Your brother will certainly stand up for you.
I turned and stepped into the bridal sedan. The wedding banquet at the Marquis's estate was grand and spectacular. Even the old Marquis, who had abstained from alcohol for a long time, could not help but drink a few extra cups. During the feast, he repeatedly brought up the old General Zhou, and even remarked that his son had terrible judgment. The guests all chimed in agreement. After the wedding ceremony was completed, I was led into the room by the bridal escort. The candlelight flickered and danced beneath the red bridal veil, casting a warm, soft glow of red, and my heart kept thumping wildly along with it. Rong Yu pushed open the door and entered. When he lifted my veil, a faint scent of wine drifted from him, making me feel a little lightheaded and tipsy as well. After sharing the nuptial cup, I gathered some courage, reaching out to untie the jade belt around his waist. Husband, let us retire for the night. That night, I only saw the red candle flickering and swaying, just like me, until it burned itself out, until I was utterly exhausted, until the room was filled with lingering passion. Rong Yu held me in his arms, and my fingertips traced the high bridge of his nose. Husband, did you already have designs on me long ago? The first time Rong Yu heard Cui Shuwan's name, it was from his father's mouth. That year, his father and Uncle Zhou were pursued by pirates and fled to Taikang Prefecture. It was Father Cui who saved them. Father Cui had a clever and lively daughter. While the two were recovering from their illnesses, she always managed to make them laugh heartily. The Cui family was a local family of noble and pure reputation, so Father Rong conceived the idea of arranging a marriage. Fearing he might cause offense, he first told Father Zhou about the matter, asking Father Zhou to sound out Father Cui's thoughts. Who would have thought that Father Zhou harbored the exact same intention, and even went behind his back to arrange a marriage alliance with the Cui family. Thus, when his father told him about this, he cursed Father Zhou as a scheming old scoundrel. Later, he even submitted a memorial to the throne, asking the emperor to station him at the frontier, allowing him to return only once every 2 or 3 years. On the day Rong Yu met Cui Shuwan, he was brooding over his own incompetence. He sat drunk by the moat, reflecting on his life. He wanted to go to the battlefield and ride a fine horse in splendid robes. He wanted to be respected and admired, just like his father. But he was also afraid. He feared the cold blades of the battlefield, the bleached bones, and the mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. Even more, he feared that others would sacrifice their lives to pave his path to success. He wanted to jump in, to clear his head, but someone grabbed him by the collar from behind and pulled him back with force. It turned out to be an exceptionally beautiful young lady. He explained to her that he didn't actually want to end his life. He was just filled with regret over a friend who had died because of him. If he could, he wished he had been the one to die. The young lady sat down beside him by the moat. She said, "Your friend saved you not so you could live in pain, but to give you a chance to figure out the path you want to take. If you remain this despondent, he will surely regret risking his life to save yours. You should carry on his life and live on with the purpose of his existence. Only then will his sacrifice not be in vain." When she left, she dropped a handkerchief. Embroidered on it were several budding hibiscus flowers. He sent people to inquire, only then finding out that she was the daughter of the Cui family whom his father had talked about for so long, Cui Shuwan. Unfortunately, she was already betrothed to the Zhou family. Following his father's example, he secretly cursed the elder Zhou as an old scoundrel. Later, he would often steal glances at her from afar at various banquets. He thought,
If only she were betrothed to me.
heaven rewards the diligent. That day, Cui Shuwan actually came to his door on her own initiative to give him crickets, which she had caught with her own hands. He knew his chance had come. Life as the heir's wife was very pleasant. Rong Yu's mother spent her days in the Buddhist hall, and so I was excused from the daily morning and evening formal greetings. I could sleep in until the sun was high in the sky. However, it is just that Rong Yu and I would stay up quite late tossing and turning at night. Not long after our marriage, Rong Yu handed over all the assets under his name to me. He began to teach me how to manage the shops, oversee the farmland of the estates, and take charge of the Marquis mansion's household affairs. He said that wealth and vision are the real skills for a woman to establish herself in this world. I also opened a restaurant with Zhenyang. Zhenyang is an excellent cook, and the restaurant's business is booming day by day. Su Wanqiu became a regular customer at the restaurant, often dragging me and Zhenyang along to help her evaluate the men the secretariat director had selected for her. I was curious why she didn't agree to be with Zhou Xun. She frowned and said,
"A man like him is hardly a good match."
I heard she is currently discussing marriage with the heir of the Prince of Chen's mansion. We all have a bright future ahead of us.